Namaste everyone here at BookTube. Welcome to my channel Hamsavahini Vajra Astra. I'm Ahuna. Today's video is going to be about my TBR Share for Spiritathon. Now, Spiritathon is a fresh readathon which I created, keeping in view and in mind that it is the holiday season, and of course we have lots of readathons ongoing on BookTube, and I am participating in a few of them as well, which are fun, but I did not really find any readathon which had spirituality which was present within it. So we did have readathons which had romance, we had readathons with fantasy, etc. But I believe it was best to have a readathon which did have some spiritual element in it, so that it would help us to connect with the spiritual essence of the holiday season as well. So I did create a readathon, and today I'm going to share my TBR of the books which I am going to read for this particular readathon. I would also request, in case if you do find the options, or I would say the prompts on this readathon interesting, you could definitely participate. In fact, I would encourage you to participate so that it would be easier for all of you, and also you would feel nice to connect spiritually with the holiday season as well. So the primary requirement of this particular challenge is to read 2 spiritual non-fiction books, because there are 2 sections which this readathon is divided into. One is the non-fiction section, which has a broad array of 7 choices, amongst which you have to select only 2. And also in the spiritual fiction section, you can select any one book, or maybe anything which has some spiritual element in it. So coming to the non-fiction section, the first challenge is to read a spiritual non-fiction book. So for this particular prompt, I have chosen to read this book, which is called Tantric Jesus, which I just came about, and this has been written by James Hugo Reho, PhD. Now, as you can see, there is a mystical diagram, and this diagram is very well known and popular. It is a Sri Yantra diagram, and of course many do say it's from the Hindu philosophy, which is true, but it is actually belonging to the Sanatan Dharma, which is the original name of Hinduism. So this does not really link Jesus to the Hindu culture, but yes, it does explain from a yogic point of view the meaning of Jesus and his wonderful path. Now, I understand that the term Tantra is quite misunderstood in the Western culture, but for obvious reasons, which is to protect the actual mystery of it. However, Tantra means to weave. So basically, every philosophy of wisdom is supposed to be woven. So 2 opposite philosophies are woven together, and they are combined and beautifully manifested, such that both support each other and they beautifully manifest together. So even though they're opposite in nature, however, Tantric Jesus is all about the heartfelt path which discovers Jesus as in a guru tradition, or in a master's tradition. So this is something which I found very interesting, and as you can see, it's quite a book. So I will take time to read it, and I hope I will be able to finish it. But this book fulfills a lot of prompts which are present in this readathon. Now, so that would be the selection for my first prompt. Now, the second prompt is to read a mysticism book, which is non-fiction, or a spiritual science book, or a metaphysical book. So I was quite confused with the array of choices which I have. However, I chose to read this book, which is Mary and the Divine Sophia, which has been written by MacFarlane. Now, MacFarlane is a Rosicrucian, which is written from the back of the book. However, I won't delve too much into it because I don't want to really elongate this video, but it does deal a lot about the various traditions which honor the Divine Sophia, or the Divine Wisdom, and honestly, Sri Vidya, which is the divine wisdom which comes from Sri Yantra, is actually one of such traditions. So keeping in lieu of this, I did make this selection, which is extremely helpful in understanding or keeping up with the flow. So that would be my book selection for the second prompt. Now, the third challenge is to read a spiritual anthology or spiritual devotional book. So for this I chose a very sweet book which is called A Cup of Comfort, Women of the Bible Devotional, which has been edited by James Stuart Bell and Susan B. Townsend. It's a lovely book. I haven't read it. I've just skimmed the initial pages of this book, which I did find very interesting, so I picked up this book, and I hope I'm going to enjoy this book. I plan to read this every day and learn a little more so as to reinforce my spiritual path. Now, the next challenge is to read about the life of a saint or a seer or a seeress or a spiritual icon, spiritual personality, prophet, prophetess, priest or a priestess. So my initial choice was for reading the book which is The Spirituality of Jane Austen, which is something which I'm dying to read, but I realized that I am not through with all of her novels. So I have to first finish all her novels and then I can go for it so as to grasp a better understanding. So instead, I chose this book, The Life of Mary, as Seen by Mystics, which has been compiled by Rapahel Brown. It's a very common book, and of course it's a very good book as well, but I'm quite intrigued to know and delve deeper into the life of Mother Mary, so this seemed to be the perfect choice. Now, the next challenge is to read, excuse me for that, that's my other phone which is ringing. Now, the next prompt is to read a book which combines spirituality with trees, plants, herbs, flowers, etc. So for this I chose to read Holy Herbs, Modern Connections to Ancient Plants by Sudhir Ahluwalia, and it does talk about all the herbs and the plants which are mentioned in the Bible, so especially stressing upon the time of Moses. So I'm quite excited to read about this because it does talk about the scientific aspects and the herbal aspects and the medicinal aspects and the spiritual aspects of these herbs. So let's see where I get from here. And the next prompt is to read a book about a spiritual element which is closest to you or which enlivens the spirit within you. So for this I made two choices. The first book is Essene, Book of Everyday Virtues. So this is the spiritual wisdom from the Dead Sea Scrolls. I had acquired this book quite earlier and I had finished a few pages which was about 8 months ago, but I left this aside. I was reading this with Qumran, but then Qumran is quite a book and I need time to get through it, so I thought that I probably will be able to finish this book earlier. So it's not a very thick book, so it's a short book. I should be able to complete this. Now, the reason why I chose this book is I believe that virtues or developing virtues in a spiritual path is extremely important. Otherwise, the morality and the nobility of the spiritual path, when it's manifested, does not come out. So this is something which is extremely essential and is the fundamental foundation of any spiritual path, that you should have your moral values in place, which should imbibe nobility. Therefore, anything which you manifest with in terms of your spiritual path or using your spiritual principles in your day-to-day life is going to actually enliven and bring out the beauty of and the mysteries of the entire aspect of spirituality which you're working with. So this, I believe, is to me, this is very important. So this is the book which I chose for this particular challenge. There is also another book which I was quite intrigued about reading, and this is How to Be Monastic and Not Leave Your Day Job. So this is a very short book and it's been written by Brother Benet. I'm not sure about this, how to pronounce this. So I don't want to pronounce this wrong. So I was quite intrigued. It's a guide for Benedictine oblates and other Christians who follow monastic life, and it's written for those who are ordinary and they do a job, they want to do a job, and they want to pursue a spiritual path as well as and they want to be more, I wouldn't say strictly monastic, but on the lines of the monastic life. So basically everything to do with oblates. So I don't know much about the oblates, but then I am quite interested in knowing about them. So this is why I chose this book as well. So these are the two books which I'll be reading for the prompt, which says that read a book which is spiritual element, which is closest to you. There is a last book, or a last prompt, which is to read a book featuring sacred places and sacred or a sacred pilgrimage which you plan to visit. Now for this, I was planning to read the book on Qumran, but I don't think I'll be able to get there. First I'll have to finish this, especially the one which says Tantric Jesus, which is quite a book. So let me see how I get over there. In case if I do have time, I will read the book on Qumran. Otherwise, maybe not. I'll probably not enter into it as well. Now in terms of the spiritual fiction section, the first is to read a spiritual fiction book, the second is to read a moral fiction book, and the third is to read a mystical fiction book. So I am reading a mystical fiction book along with another readathon, which is the Cloak and Dagger readathon. So I don't have the physical copy of the book, but it is the Rosabelle line by Ashwin Sanghi. So, however, I'm not too sure whether I'll finish it or not. The other book which I wanted to finish was A Two from Galilee, which is a story of Mary and Joseph, which is written in fiction form, and it's all about the violent as well as the most challenging times through which a young girl betrothed to a young carpenter had to face in order to do their spiritual work, which had been given to them by God himself. So it's quite interesting, and I have been reading this book for, in fact, today is the first day, which is 30th of November, which is when I'm recording this. So today is the first day of another readathon. I have chosen this book for this readathon as well, so I will be choosing this book. Now, apart from that, I'll be reading 3 books which are of the Christmas spirit, and these are Coming Home for Christmas by Julia Williams. This is the first part, so it's got all about a family which has a mother, a daughter, as well as a grandmother, and how it brings the family together. And there is also a man involved who has just got divorced. However, his ex-wife comes back, and how this woman deals with everything. So I'm not going to read from the back of the book at the moment, otherwise it's going to be a very long video. However, this is the first part of the book. The second part of the book is A Merry Little Christmas, which is all about family, friends, and festive seasons, and I just wanted to read this. This is part 2 of this, and the last is Last Christmas by Julia Williams again. Christmas comes but just once a year, thankfully, and I have chosen this series, and I hope I'll be able to complete it this Christmas season, because it's been with me for quite some time, and believe it or not, I've not read it. So this was the best opportunity for me to read it. So those would be my TBR for this particular readathon, which is Spiritathon. And in case if you do find any of the prompts or the challenges interesting, do please join in, or just read any spiritual book. That should be just good enough. So thank you for joining me today, and I'll be wrapping up this video. I'll see you soon once again in another video. So till then, take care of yourself, have a good reading week ahead, take rest, enjoy the holidays, and namaste.